podcast could seem offensive if your funny box is broken. Bring a thick skin to dinner. Bon appetit.
You drink tea mainly for the enjoyment of it, like the taste and everything, right? I like tea too. But
Martika, you say that like people don't drink tea to enjoy it. Like I'm this alien, like, oh, Brian's the only person that drinks tea to enjoy it.
Well, I mean, we just got back from our holiday break, so I mean, Happy New Year.
Stop. You took a holiday break, like an actual holiday break? Like, what do you mean? Explain that to me for a second.
So I would say for the first time in a long time, I actually got some much-needed rest.
Oh,
Like,
wow.
some much-needed rest. Like, I probably slept more than I should, hence why even after, or on New Year's Day, I was still asleep till like noon, 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
But that's like a paradox, though, because you needed to sleep. Like, so you needed to get that amount of sleep. So your body was like, all right, the first opportunity I get to shut down, I'm going to shut down. So,
Yeah.
like, you needed it anyway. So you didn't sleep too much. You probably didn't sleep enough, I would imagine.
Probably. I think it was like collective hours over this long period of time that I just did not sleep properly.
Yeah.
I mean, they always say, like, you know, if you don't rest, like, your body will force you
Correct.
to. So,
It'll shut down. Hopefully you're not driving when that happens, like it did with me
oh
last
my
year.
gosh. Yeah, no, it's, luckily I was at home and it was definitely much needed. I would say I want to start doing more of that,
Yeah.
especially this year, just because last year I realized looking back, like, I've been running myself absolutely ragged. But I mean, I feel like if I didn't, I wouldn't have gotten some of the stuff.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
that's the other paradox is that if we don't put that amount of work in, do we get to the places that we've gotten to in 2024, right? And
Yeah.
so, well, I guess let's because we got to introduce this thing. This is the TeaPod with Martika and Brian, or Brian and Martika, whichever week or whatever day that we feel. Like we'll figure all that out.
We'll get it down pat later.
We'll get it down pat. But this is the TeaPod. So the idea behind the TeaPod was you and I both are avid tea drinkers, probably more than we should, which probably contributes to the fact that we work so much. And we had the idea that we wanted to just, as entrepreneurs, be able to talk to each other and talk to other entrepreneurs under the auspices of having a good cup of tea. Is that a fair synopsis, or am I leaving stuff out there?
No, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I absolutely love tea and probably drink way too many teas in one day.
Well, okay. So since you opened this box, like, what in your mind, what's too much? Like, what is?
Well, I mean, I guess it depends, because I mean, you drink tea mainly for the enjoyment of it, like the taste and everything, right? I like tea too. But
Martika, you say that like people don't drink tea to enjoy it. Like I'm this alien, like, oh, Brian's the only person that drinks tea to enjoy it. Like everybody else is this big
so
chore.
I have a mixture of tea and coffee, but I like the yogi teas. You know, I like the,
okay.
I like the my favorite is Positive Energy, and then there's Perfect Energy. It is
Okay.
mainly because they're highly caffeinated.
Okay, wait, time out. What in the heck is the difference between Positive Energy and Perfect Energy? Explain that to me.
I want to say their explanation for it is mainly just because of the different tastes. Like Positive Energy, it has more like the tangerine kind of taste to it. It's very like morning. It reminds me of morning, and it's like positivity, positive vibes.
So like starting your day off right kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the Perfect Energy, which if you have a sensitivity to caffeine, I do not recommend.
Which I do, which is one of the reasons why I don't drink coffee, right? Like I drink tea because I can't drink coffee.
Yeah, it's Perfect Energy. It has like the vanilla spice. It has more of like a harder, bitter taste to it. But when you drink it, it's like, choo!
Is it
like
it's an instant feeling, or do you like feel it over time? Like how does that work?
I would say probably within the first 30 minutes of drinking it.
See, that scares the hell out of me.
Yeah.
Like something like that, like the idea that I'm gonna have this quick injection of energy, and I wasn't expecting it. Like, because
it's kind of unexpected.
I could be doing 1,000 things, right? Like, I mean, I could be running to the post office and the post lady's like, "Hey, Brian, how's your day going?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's going really good." Like, and I'm freaking out. Like,
Yeah.
like to me, that seems like not what I want to happen. But
if it says anything, I still have a box of Perfect Energy tea in the cabinet that I haven't touched, and I always buy positive energy over that.
So how many cups do you actually drink like a day? Like if you had to average it out?
I would say about 4.
Damn. You drink 4 cups of that stuff every day?
Yeah, like it just really depends on what I'm doing, right? If I feel like at each quarter of my day, like I need to have more energy or like a boost or something. Sometimes George and I will like split it just to make sure that we're not not taking too much caffeine.
What is it? Titration of tea? Like,
yeah, titration of tea.
Fair enough.
You know, I feel like I cheated today because I didn't have tea until now. And I had the energy gum, the Rev gum. Is like, yeah.
Energy gum?
Yeah, so I learned about it as Rev, R-E-V, and you can get it at Walmart or Target. And one piece of gum is the equivalent to a cup of espresso.
Nope, I'm out. I'm out. I'm out. Like, I'm good.
You're probably like, what is wrong with this?
No. Have a blast. Like one thing I learned about myself is when it comes to like the routines and like the idiosyncratic philosophies of people, if it works for you, cool. But like espresso's worth of a stick of gum, nah, I'm good. I tell you what. Do you remember the gum Big Red?
Yes,
okay.
I do.
Because I know you young people, y'all know that. Like eating a piece of Big Red, it's like spicy as hell. Like it's so spicy to me, and like I can't eat too much of it because it'll like tear my sinuses up. So it's like stuff like that. But I couldn't imagine having a piece of gum and like it like being a shot of espresso. Like why would I don't know. But.
Full transparency, I had 1.5 today. So.
So this is the TeaPod with Brian and Martika. Martika, Brianne Jones, Brian Alvarez-Bailey. What are you drinking today?
I am drinking Acai Power.
Acai Power. And is that one? Does it come with anything or?
You know.
Do you put like milk or like sweetener in your teas or no?
No, I drink it straight.
Straight shot. I eat my espresso gum straight. I drink my tea straight.
But I don't drink my coffee black though. That I gotta have milk.
So you do drink coffee at points.
Yeah.
But you don't like take all of that stuff in a single day.
Oh no, because all of it has a caffeine milligram percentage. So it's usually things average out to about 60 milligrams.
Oh wow! So you got it. Like you literally have this down to a science. That's how serious it is.
You don't want to overdo it. I'm pretty sure you can't have over like 1,000 milligrams or something like that at a time because it's bad. It's bad for your heart.
I was say your heart will leave at that point. Like my heart just wasn't in it. No, you're right. It wasn't in it. It wasn't in it at all.
Yeah, you gotta be careful with that stuff. So yeah, I'm very much so like, okay, I'm capping this out. Like I've had 1.5 gums today. Probably won't. I'm having this Acai Power. I'm not sure if there is caffeine in it, so I most likely won't have anything.
Oh, then this will be a really fun podcast then.
Like, we'll get halfway through and we'll see what happens.
Exactly. Like Martika's like doing backflips at this point. So I'm keeping it very simple. So you said you kind of gave me the average of 4 cups with the positive tea. I do believe in herbal tea as well, but like during the daytime, I try to only drink black tea. And that's either going to be an Earl Grey, a Darjeeling, maybe an Indian chai, but it has to be like black. It can't have any sugar in it. Can't have any cream. I do drink almond milk, but I won't include it in the tea. So look, I mean, you called it earlier, right? Like it's an experience for me. Part of not just my personal life, but also my entrepreneurship journey has been trying to be purposeful with the things that I enjoy and the things that I use to de-stress, right? And you say, well, you use caffeine to de-stress. Yeah, like the act of brewing a cup of tea and steeping it and then watching it and then like a little kid on Hanukkah or Christmas, I'm just like excited, like, oh man, my tea's almost there. I'm serious. Like I make it a morning routine. So in the morning, I get up, I walk my dogs, I make my bed, like I do all these morning things that we all do. I take a few minutes of mindfulness, so meditation, things like that, and then like to cap it, like the reward to myself for doing all of those self-care things is like taking the tea, right? I spent like a month in London back in 2014, and I just developed this like habit where I was like, yo, I got to do tea. And then it formed into something that I was able to use positively, right? It wasn't quote unquote addictions are only addictions in your mind if they have negative sort of consequences. Whereas I felt like drinking this tea was positive because I can never do coffee. That was never like my thing. So yeah, just drinking a regular old Earl Grey, just keeping it simple. Martika and I, we met, I want to say maybe like 2 years ago, officially or unofficially.
Has it been 2 years already?
Because we met at UT, at University of Tampa.
Yeah.
I was a part of the 2022 incubator, and you were part of the 2020 accelerator.
Yeah, 2021, I feel like.
So the year
it's
the
a
year
blur.
before,
That was,
right?
that was that blank year.
We lost like 5 years, and I'm like, wait, it's 2024 already? Like, what the hell are we doing? Anyway, but yeah, so you were at UT. I then went to UT where I launched my company Allison, and then we did like an entrepreneur showcase where UT basically brought in a bunch of investors and other alumni to hear the pitch of the respective companies. It was like 20 different companies or something like that.
Yeah, I remember that. That was I believe the first year I was asked to judge.
I'm glad you brought it up because that was gonna be. So let's put some ground rules here since this is our first episode. Don't spill the tea, like both literally and figuratively.
I'm done.
I don't think they should let us do a podcast. I don't think this is gonna work.
They're gonna be like, wait a minute, what happened?
Exactly. We're not gonna be able to get through this. But okay, so yes, you were a judge, and there was a selection process of the participating companies. So basically, you would pitch your product or service, and then there was a criteria by which it was like three different judges, something like that?
Yeah, I think we actually were assigned a lot more. Maybe I'm misremembering. Maybe it was three judges that time.
Okay, right.
So it was like 5.
Right, yeah. So it was like 5 judges overall, but there were clusters of judges.
Yeah.
You guys were like mix and match. And then I remember pitching for you and the other judges there, and then you all like deliberated and made whatever selections. Of course, I didn't win, and I was looking squarely in your direction, but it's like I gotta slip you $100 bill. No, I should have brought you some positive tea, some perfect tea.
See, there you go.
See, I didn't know.
It would have swayed things a little bit.
I didn't know. But like, we connected, and then like I didn't put 2 and 2 together, but then you and I connected again at Embark.
Yes.
We did something at Embark.
It was the Blacks in Technology.
Yes.
Pitch event.
Right, and that was the one that you pitched at.
Yes.
So basically, when we met, you heard me pitch, and then I heard in the reverse. I heard you pitch. Obviously, I wasn't a judge, but that was like the first time I heard like the pitch for your company, and your company is what?
BÖP.
Okay, cool. I was going to say, this is your podcast too. Like, it's not like you came branded or anything.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah.
You got a rep. And then like some time goes by, and then we connect again at
the Minority Enterprise Development Conference.
Got
So,
it.
yeah, I remember I was like, oh, there's Brian, and then I don't know, me being me. What did I do? I like jumped out in the middle of the.
So I'll always give you your flowers here. You have the most interesting ability to disarm someone's discomfort, and what I mean by that is like we had crossed paths, but we didn't like know each other.
Yep.
And so you kind of like just came up to me like, "Hey, Brian," and I was just like, "Who is this little person talking to me?" Like we've been friends for. No, I'm being honest. Like who is this person like just talking to me like that? But then thinking about it in retrospect, it was like, oh, like she's going into this situation, meeting someone new with the attitude that, oh, a stranger is just someone that I haven't met yet, right? Like this is just someone that I haven't had a conversation with. but I'm going to have a conversation with them. It's going to go well, and something positive is going to come from that. I mean, is that like, do you do that like consciously, or is that just your demeanor?
I mean,
or am I even describing that properly?
No, I feel like you kind of hit it on the head. If I overthink things, then I feel like I will not make that connection. Sometimes it's just like one of those things that just happens on a whim. So I felt like bubbly and ambitious in that moment. So I was like, well, I'm just going to act on it. And sometimes those are like far few and in between, because like when I usually do like networking and things like that, I'm always like, oh my gosh, like who am I going to talk to? And I'm a little self-conscious, even though like I'm in the business of building relationships.
Right.
But I guess sometimes it just comes out and I'm like, oh, I'm in a great mood. I know of this person and I want to get to know this person better, and I'm just going to do something quirky, I guess.
Just totally disarm them completely. Like, I'm going to just take all the fuel that they could use against me right away at the top.
So
and now
I just do random things.
We're just talking now.
Yeah, like I just do very random things, and sometimes it works. Hey.
Do you feel like that's like is that something that just comes innately with you, or have you had to develop that as a skill as you've grown in your entrepreneurship journey? Or do the two things not even mix?
So I would say that I've always had like a big personality, like ever since I was little. Like I've always just been like, oh, I'm gonna go do this, and then some kind of magical way, like I find a way to do it. I think it's just it's like a mindset. Like once I actually put my mind to it, like I will actually just execute. And that goes with like relationships, and that goes with actually like doing things. People, I mean, when I was younger, people thought like I was just literally like crazy, because but actually gave you the impression that they thought, oh, like Martika's like off, like something's yeah,
like off
they're like, she's just her, like my family, like I have family members just like, you're something.
That's a very southern, because a lot of people know, like kind of know you and I as like this odd package deal. What a lot of people don't know is you and I both trace our roots back to Mississippi, right?
Yes.
Like Crystal Springs, Mississippi for me, and then it's
Vicksburg
for you. And so that's a very Mississippian kind of like attitude. Like she's something, because obviously we can't articulate like they say a person has it, I guess is kind of like the way that I look at it. And you can't really articulate what that it is, but they've captured a series of skills, or they've put together a series of skills and a persona that gives off something that's memorable, right?
Yep.
Like I always tell the story when people ask about my experience in Techstars, and we'll get into Techstars and kind of our companies and those type of things. But one of the things that I learned when we would have to pitch Allison to mentors that were participating in the program, the feedback that we got back was either people were really bullish on Allison or they were really bare. Yeah. There was no in between. And one, the directors of the program basically said, look, Brian, you want to be memorable, whether that's positive or negative. You want someone to at least have a lasting memory of you, because then you could always leverage that positivity, or at least clearly you have something to work on, right? Like you have a starting point for improvement, or a starting place to improve. So like the idea that you make this impression on people, it then puts you in a space where like, oh, that's Martika, that's the BÖP girl, or that's the BÖP lady or woman. I'm sorry, I don't want to say girl. I'm not trying to get us canceled on the first episode.
BÖP lady is that's definitely the title. I've definitely made a I guess you could say, I feel like both of us have made a name for ourselves here in the Tampa Bay area. But yeah, the BÖP lady is a very common term.
Well, when you say make a name for yourselves, when people introduce me as Allison, the CEO of Brian, it's like, bro, like, what are we doing?
Come on now. Like, I learned very quickly. That's how, when people are like, oh, you're the BÖP lady, it's like your brand kind of like supersedes you in a way. Like, they know
it goes
the brand,
into the room before you even get in that room.
which is crazy. And so I know you've experienced that, and like I know I've experienced that. How does that? This actually brings up an interesting point. How does that make you feel when people see the brand before the CEO? Does that kind of like, is that kind of like a struggle for you sometimes? Do they even think that you are the CEO? Like, I know I've ran into some rooms like that too.
Now we're having a conversation. So I tried to take the foresight to tell myself, okay, you're in a space that's dominated by not a lot of people that fit your persona. And I'll say it that way. So you're going to have to leverage abilities and skills that you have. So you're basically this unique thing. So you're going to have to tap into whatever is unique about you and then leverage that to then build on Allison. So kind of like the idea that our brands walk in the room before we do, I have to build it into that, something that I want to walk into the room positively with. Yeah. So like I want it to kind of say something before I come in. I don't want them to make assumptions on what I do. I want to basically set a point of origin, and then wherever we go after that is wherever we go, right? Yeah. So the idea being, I'm in Tampa and even in Birmingham now, like I'm known as like the fintech guy. And then in certain circles, I'm known as the black fintech guy, right? Yeah. And in even further circles, I'm known as the black fintech community banking guy, right? So you see like each little step, like things get added to it. And so positively, I want Allison to are you familiar with the concept of like thought leadership? I think it's a crock of nonsense. Like I hate the idea of a thought leader. Like, oh, Brian, you're a thought leader. Like,
right. I feel like we haven't jumped on that bandwagon yet.
Right. Like
I have people that are like, oh, you should do it. I'm like, I don't know if I.
But it's like, do what though? Like, what is a thought leader? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just somebody with an opinion.
I'm just here.
Right. Literally. I just work here, right? Like, that's literally my attitude. So it's like the idea of thought leadership, I think, is such nonsense. I do believe that there should be the idea that BÖP or Allison in their respective industries are looked at as leaders. But to me, that's a collective thing. Like, that's less about my abilities than it is about like the abilities of our team. Right. Right. Like I look at that as a win of our team because we've collectively created value for our customers to the point where our customers are then espousing our virtues, and then that's gaining like a collective kind of win. Yeah. But going out and just saying like, oh, I'm this guy. Like I've never like I don't tout myself like that. Like I'm just as a person. Like I don't like those people. Like I get. Like, I feel cringy around those people.
No, I totally agree with that, honestly. And that's why I asked that, because I remember my first interaction of, sitting down and I'm just, like, trying to sell a single BÖP, although we're, like, getting we're going way past that now. And, there'll be more on that later. But just, trying to make that sell.
This was your first BÖP sale?
Not first BÖP sale, but just, maybe meeting with somebody at a coffee shop. And,
okay.
And, just kind of like telling them more about it, trying to get like a team on and things like that, but starting with that individual, just one cell, right? And I remember sitting down and they were like, are you going to eat from this, honey? And I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, what do you mean am I going to eat from this? And and I've gotten that several times before or after that, but this was coming from like a more established person who was just like, wow, I didn't realize that you were the CEO, but it came from him. It came from different places, like not that I didn't see like you couldn't be a CEO, right. But it was more like the company and the branding and how like we carry ourselves just seems so much larger, right? Like a large corporation, right? And he was like, but he didn't want me to take any offense. And I was like, no, I actually felt like that's a compliment. But then I also sometimes feel the power struggle, but then a different group of people, that mainly look more like us. Right. I've had situations where like I would be a vendor and then they would, say something like, oh, are you going to eat from this? And they're like, but they were assuming and they were coming at it from like an assumption of like, there's no way this is yours. Yep. And I'm like, no, this is all me. And they're just like, what? Yeah. And they're like shocked. But the other demographic is more like it was a compliment of like it looks and feels professional. It's like this large thing, and I feel like I want that to be seen more like that than to be like, oh, this couldn't be you. But I feel like I struggle with that.
Well, look, I do too, right? And building anything from scratch is hard, right? So basically the premise of a startup is I have this idea. I'm going to go out and execute it to the point where I can get people to pay for it. I'm creating something completely from scratch that did not exist the day before.
Right.
That's hard as hell, right? Like that's just a hard thing to do for anybody. I think when you add demographic dynamics and, being black, minority, whatever you want to call it, blah, blah, blah. I think when you add in gender dynamics of being a male CEO versus being a woman CEO, I think those demographics play in there and they just add on to it. It's all hard, right? So the hard sort of thesis is it's hard, difficult. And then now we are adding various grades of difficulty to it. But like the idea that people are like, wait, you're doing this? Like I get that all the time. And it's like, yeah. Like I've learned, I understand my market. I know how my customers think, or at least I have a good thesis on how my customers think. More importantly, I have a good process for extracting that information and measuring it and making sure that, our assumptions are either validated or we just get rid of them entirely. Like I feel confident in that process. Yeah. Thusly, I'm not looking at it from the standpoint of, hey, these are the results I want. I say, no. I put the good the what I would call a cogent and replicatable process in place. If we get good results, great. If we don't get good results, then that means something in the process needs to change, and I can split test little pieces of it. But that's been my experience where folks are like, wow, like I didn't know you were doing this, right? Yeah. One, wow, like how did you get to this point, right? Like how did who are you, kind of thing? Because look, we don't look like the average people that would be in those spots. But I would argue that's how, especially for you and I, like, and one of the reasons why you and I gravitated towards each other from a knowledge perspective was like we were kind of navigating in similar waters, and we were also coming up with similar processes for navigating those waters effectively. Mm-hmm. And I just thought it was dope, like kind of how we kind of did that. Tell me more about BÖP. Like what, in a like very tight vacuum, like what does BÖP do and what do you want it to do?
So BÖP is like BUP with the long U. And
don't skip on the umlaut or whatever that thing is.
Oh, the Macron.
Oh, look at you. Martika, you are. I call you bougie, but like I have to come up with a new word now because it's like right. It's like, wait, what? A crone? What was it?
Macron.
Excuse me. Esoteric.
That's my word, apparently.
That's right. Yeah.
But yeah, BÖP is a B2B networking solution. So what we do is we help sales teams and professionals, manage their leads more efficiently and nurture them more efficiently so that they can close more deals. And essentially, we do this by using artificial intelligence and automation. So imagine being able to finally network with those 300 people at that large conference, but instead of having to sit there and remember who you talked to, all of that has been internalized through BÖP. And now you're getting personality-based follow-ups. So essentially...
So let me just make sure I understand it, because I know what you do, but I want to make sure, we're communicating it effectively. So I go to a conference. I'm already gearing my mind up to have to lug back, 50 cards. But then also, so there's the first part of it. I got to collect the cards.
Yep.
Now I got to go back to my hotel room, and I got to sit and put each of these cards into my CRM, and then figure out, like, okay, this was Dave, this was Bob, this was Ann, this was Marcia. Here's how they fit in the grand scheme of my business or whatever it is that I do, right? Like, that's what I have to do today. What you're stating is you make that process automated so that I then don't have to go back in my hotel room and spend hours doing follow-up. You're not only connecting me and this stranger together, but you're also creating a follow-up that's tailored to that person.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So, so now instead of having to distribute all those business cards, you can make meaningful connections with a single tap. Just boop. Exactly.
Okay, so it's a physical device.
Yep. So this right here on my wrist is...
Yo, don't be using our podcast to sell your stuff.
I'm like, yo. No, but Yeah, essentially, you could have it in the form of a wristband. That's our most popular product, but you tap someone's phone, they exchange information with you. I mean, you can still take their business card if you want, but from a more sustainable practice, like you're like, hey, I got your information, and now it's processing through our database and determining their personality type, and then drafting up follow-up messages. So then all you got to do is be like, boop, approved, and then
you
automated.
got your own little sound effect.
Look, it got to be boop.
That's what it sounds like when the email goes out.
That or the whoosh, right?
That's right. Either one. Well, you couldn't patent whoosh like you couldn't patent boop because it has the micron or whatever it is.
Oh my god,
micron.
the micron, the micron, the Macron.
The Macron. Okay, fair enough. All right, that'll be my homework from this episode. Is I'll go look up whatever that is, whatever you just said, and kind of do some more research on it. Has it been your experience, and I don't want to load the question because I'm genuinely curious, like kind of what you think on it, because I'll definitely tell you my thoughts, but have you found it to be an advantage to talking about the AI portions of your service? Or like, I guess what I'm asking is, do you find that people take the product are more invested in the product if you talk about the AI stuff up front?
I personally feel like they do, especially in our competitive market space. Trying to differentiate from being like a contact management system or something like that. Like
Sure.
we're more than that, right? I actually either utilize AI when I'm talking to somebody, or I say like we lead nurture. So like we're a lead nurturing platform is more what I.
So it's not just
lean
lead
on.
collection and categorization. Like you're actually building the relationship.
Exactly. So it's like that sweet spot before you would even send it off to a CRM. We're like that middleman per se, where now we're your digital assistant helping you warm that lead up before sending it off. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, because I mean, look, I think I've been a software developer. I started my software development career or journey or whatever in 2006, and I was just building WordPress websites. And then eventually I got to the point where I just became a full-on front-end developer. So I would build these, I would build these efficient front ends, and then I would work with back-end developers to actually power them. But I would create like the user journey and the user stories and personas and different things like that. Through that process, I would meet a lot of developers that had experience with creating what we now call artificial intelligence or natural language processing, right? The idea that you can take human syntax and create it into a queryable language, right? Yeah. Where it almost is like a programming language. And so like I would hear things about how like the ideas that would be generated from, creating AI that would query, this subject and then generate a bunch of ideas based on that subject as if they were a human, right? I've heard all these stories on those type of things. And so coming from the standpoint of Allison, right? So Allison is software that essentially takes all of the necessary back office functions of a bank and automates as much of it as possible, right? I always say that there's always going to be a human eye required to run a bank.
For sure.
But for the 99% of the other tasks, that's what our software does. So onboarding a customer, doing compliance, reporting to the government, we automate that whole process. And so I didn't start mentioning the AI portions of it until like within the last year. It was always... Yeah. We automate these things through intelligent retrieval or through, programmatic algorithms. Like I would, we make up something basically. Because I mean, look, again, talking about the thought leadership mantra and the way that I look at it as if it's pretentious, I feel the same way with AI, right? Because I see a lot of what I call Twitter gurus where people will get on Twitter. There's a lot of them. And they'll get on Twitter and they'll say, oh, well, it's AI powered, blah, blah, blah. Well, all you did was you slapped the UI on a GPT, a GPT instance, right?
Yeah.
And so there's the difference between you communicating with someone that's technical enough to know that you're full of bleep versus communicating with someone that has money that you're just trying to get money from. So you drop the word AI so that it looks like your software does more than what it does.
Yeah.
And, like I'm just always conscious of not sounding pretentious. Like maybe that's my imposter syndrome, but I'm serious. Like it's just like I always like look for opportunities to show my intelligence as opposed to just being an intelligent person and being comfortable enough to occupy that seat. I just haven't. That's a part that I haven't figured that out yet. And I hope, as we, continue to go forward, like I'll develop more processes that help me do that. But that's something that's always in the back of my mind because it goes back to what you said about walking in the room and people being shocked.
Yeah.
Like that's a jarring experience to the point where it like will scar you for life. Where you like, yo, I gotta make right. Look, because if I know this could be the reaction. Like I as a founder, I always have to plan out like my steps. So Allison took in venture capital from Alabama Futures Fund, which is managed by Red Hawk.
Congratulations to that.
Thank you. Well, no, what's the joke? Is Brian solvent? Like that's,
yeah, you're solvent now.
Yeah, because every time Brian mentions something, say, "Whoa, I'm solvent. I don't really need to worry about that."
Those are solvent activities.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say less so these days, but that's we'll talk about that later. But like, so shout out to AFF, who have been huge supporters of us. Obviously, not just by investing in us, but like they've been really helpful to help me and my team understand our sales strategy, right? Because they manage, 17 different, or I guess 18 now, almost 20 different startups that are at various levels of success that they've helped to influence. So they've got a bucket full of knowledge that I can pull from. So one of the things that Matt Hodel, one of the principals, told me, he said, "Brian, I love the way you think. You have a fish diagram mentality versus a maze mentality." And I was like, "What the hell are you talking about? Like, what does that even mean?"
Fish diagram.
Well, right. I was like, what is a fish? Like, first of all, I had to remember what a fish diagram was. And so he was like, "Well, the fish diagram is there are a infinite sum of paths, right? And rather than going down one and reaching a roadblock and waiting for someone to tell you to go left or go right." Yeah. You continue down until you meet resistance. And then once you've met resistance, you continue down till you met it again. Like you're basically infinitely locked in a loop where you're meeting the resistance and then going in a parallel, or excuse me, in a lateral direction. As opposed to the maze diagram mindset where you meet resistance and you stop and you go back. Right. Mm-hmm. So there's always positive momentum. And like it was one of the best compliments anybody had ever given me because I was just like, wow, I didn't even think I was doing that. But one of the reasons why I think you and I gravitated toward each other was I felt like you were doing the same thing. Because when I met you, like that wasn't the pitch for BOOP. Like it wasn't diametrically different, but it was different enough to where I could see that you took time to really to develop like into what BOOP then became. Yeah. Right? Like you took enough data and enough sort of feedback points to where you're like, okay, if this is where this is today based on these steps, then logically if I were to take these series of steps, I could even push it further. Is that accurate or?
Yeah. I mean, we pivoted earlier this year.
And I hate that word too.
Because
people think like, okay,
pivot doesn't have to be negative,
right? It doesn't, and that's what always throws me off.
And it can be slight, like it's like it can be like, okay,
exactly,
and that's what I would think is like it's not like a pivot, right? I guess is how you enunciate it, but it's
Macron.
It was slight enough, but a big enough shift where I felt something, right, okay. But that particular direction was not only like validated by you guys, and shout out to the Soaring City Startup Accelerator.
I was gonna say shout out to Soaring City because that, I mean, like legit, like that's like a lot of everything that we've done. Soaring City, just as a group, Eric, Eddie, the team, Mark, Chris Bowen, those guys have been super supportive of us.
Yes, very much so. And yeah.
Shout out to TBCN too,
Yeah.
because that's where we're shooting this right now. So
shout out to TBCN. Thank you
gotta
guys.
give them some love.
Hey. But yeah, it was validated because what was interesting is one of our customers and partners. So we have a large client right now, Century 21 Beggins, and essentially we've been kind of working out like a case study with them and just trying to figure out like their wants and needs as we were getting ready to build the V2 version of our platform.
So they're informing, so you built something, you got to market, you put it in the hands of customers, and then now you're just listening to what they have to say to build the next version of that.
Yeah, exactly. So, and we've been getting a lot of feedback. This is last year and a half, almost 2 years, and now we're able to act on it, which is a great feeling, by the way. But just taking in all that feedback, and one of those biggest things was how do we actually improve the follow-up success rate?
Okay.
So that's been like a metric that we've been trying to figure out this whole time. There ways that we could actually improve, actively measure how we improve the follow-up success rate. So with BOOP.ai now, we can actually, what we're doing with the follow-up and the lead nurturing can actually help with that improving of the follow-up success rate. Yeah.
And then so the idea being you're gathering this information from your customer, right?
Yes.
People that are paying you for the service.
Yes.
What are some of the, because I'm legit curious, what are some of the ways that you kind of sift through some of the noise? Because, customers are going to say one thing, but, you're going to have to distill that down and extrapolate. Start laughing. You're going to have to distill that down and extrapolate, what do they really need? I could tell you I want Earl Grey, but I really want a nice hot cup of Darjeeling, right? But I'm not going to tell you that up front. I'm going to give you a bunch of information. How do you then decipher through that to figure out what is it that we actually need to do for the product?
So I felt like we needed to take in a lot of data before we could actually, understand what is the core issue here. Mm-hmm. Because people would say oh, it'd be nice to have this and have that. We had a lot of feature requests.
Okay.
But what we found with the core issue of our prototype platform was the onboarding. Mm-hmm. Because people can say, oh, this would be nice or that would be nice, but when I can actively see that users aren't necessarily doing what they're supposed to do, or I can see their stopping point and what's preventing them from actually going to the next step.
Yep.
Those were the things that I looked at the most. So we did have a lot of people saying they wanted X when I could literally clearly see Y, and they couldn't get to Z, right? So
it's the fish diagram, right? They met a stopping point, and they're like, okay, I'm going to go back, or I'm just going to stop, rather than where's the lateral movement?
Yeah.
So basically, you're helping them implement that lateral movement by saying, okay, this is where you're getting stopped at. So I'm going to make my product not enforce you to do this. So then you just keep going. I'm just going to take the roadblocks out of your way.
Yeah, we literally that's what we've done, and the testers so far have just been this is so much better. We've been getting great feedback from our V2 platform that we are so excited to launch this month.
but I heard some other news. Who are you launching it with, though?
So the ink is dried, and we are officially the sponsor and partner with Synapse Summit.
Let's go.
2024. Yes, we are very excited. So it's legit going to be Synapse Summit powered by BOOP. I don't know. I wasn't ready for that. when they said powered by BOOP, I was like, oh snap!
It's
real.
It's like I told you. So we're building these things from scratch, and then there comes a time, and it was partially for me when we got outside funding, but there comes a time where you're like, oh wow, this is real. All the hard work and all those restless nights where you had to catch up on sleep during the break. And all those caffeine gums or whatever you've been eating, it all led up to that. Exactly. And it's oh, now we really got to do it. But that's a whole different level of pressure, though, Martika.
It's hit different because, just reflecting on our conversation that we had when it was just a thought.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, oh, man.
Because that's where it started, right? You and I were And again, I look, I don't take credit for nothing you've done. You've always been killing it with or without me. But I take a little bit of credit. And I was like, yo, like, reach out to Synapse and say, hey, this is kind of what I want to do, and just build a relationship. You know what you did? What you did was you did BOOP, but you did it manually.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Like you built a relationship with them with your time.
Yeah.
And that was a very hard thing to do, because let's say the deal doesn't go through. Now that time is gone, right? Like you don't have that time anymore. I think it's a good case study to show why BOOP is so valuable, because BOOP then automates as much of that as possible. Not to say that you'd have gotten to this point with Synapse using only BOOP, right? But I think it's a good juxtaposition of like why it's important that if there are opportunities for us to eliminate tasks that we just don't need to be doing as marketers and as salespeople and as CEOs, like if you're going to save time, my time has a dollar amount to it.
Yeah. Exactly.
And if you're going to reduce that number, great. Like, how much do I need to pay you for that, right?
Yeah.
And look, and legit, like, that's the attitude that we take with Allison, because we're doing the same thing, but for banks. We're not doing it from the relationship management standpoint, although that's part of it. But if a bank gets, signs up a customer, and that customer ends up, on some sort of terrorism list, and that bank doesn't, it's true, right?
It happens.
We live in different times now. We're going to keep our podcast political neutral, but we're living in some different times. But please, I would say, remember, don't spill the tea, literally. But if a bank, because look, we serve small banks, right? Like my grandmother worked for a small bank for almost 29 years. I got my first job in college at a small bank, like as an IT person at a bank. That's something that I care about, right? And look, banks, smaller banks primarily serve minority populations. The more of them that there are, the more opportunities that folks like us have to own homes and to own cars and different things like that. One of the blogs that we put out before the end of last year was about the article that CNN wrote around Navy Federal Credit Union and how they were having up to 50% of qualified Black applicants get rejected when they were going to get home loans. That's right, exactly, nuts, right? So it's situations like that where I say, man, if we have more automation than less, I feel like we can programmatically start to shift the human biases that we have. Yeah. Because now it's not about how Brian feels. It's about, okay, what is Brian's criteria for X? Yeah. If this is the criteria to go get a home loan, let's focus just on this, right? And let's remove some of the opinion-based stuff. Like, banks are going to be banks, right? But we want to help them make smarter choices and make better decisions, because I would argue in the long run, that's going to make them more money, right? Because if I trust you as a financial institution and I'm able to get a home and get a car, and it just so happens that I'm an entrepreneur and I create a multi-million-dollar startup, well, where am I going to want to bank? I'm going to bank where I have my trust, right?
Exactly.
So now you're building these relationships through that. So I think there's a lot of interesting little side missions that our respective businesses have kind of mirrored, and it's just been interesting to me kind of see how you've dealt with them, because a lot of it is the same way I've been dealing with it, and obviously we've been able to leverage each other for knowledge and for for insights. But I think that's an invaluable thing, especially when we kind of are all just figuring this out. I have no manual for any of this.
No.
Right.
And nobody should think like, oh yeah, we have it all together. Like every day we're taking it every single day.
Literally. So every 24 hours, it's
I'm
a
like,
different.
what's happening today?
It's legit. Like, it's a different case study, and I have to take in that information and then make decisions quickly.
Like quickly, yes.
So I mean, it's been an interesting experience. So we're a few days removed from New Year's. You obviously were asleep. I was out doing stuff I probably shouldn't have been doing. That we won't mention here for legal reasons. But like, so now that we've been a few days removed from 2023, like, first question is, have you had a chance to reflect and sort of almost review last year in terms of both yourself as an entrepreneur, yourself as a person, but then also yourself as the leader of BOOP, but then also start to create the path for what you want 2024 to look like?
Yeah, so I feel like it was interesting. I feel like I had a chance to reflect during and after when I was making my Instagram reel. I put it on LinkedIn.
The thing that I saw on LinkedIn.
Yeah,
okay.
because it forced me to like go from January on, and when I tell you like I had to fit like a certain amount, and this is just from like the picture standpoint, but like there were so many moments that I wanted to share that I couldn't, and it was super hard. Like I probably spent like 2 hours trying to figure out like which photos I was going to do because there were so many great moments. And I thought about, and after doing that, I was like, wow, I remember in 2022 just like griping about I really got to like get out of bed and start doing more of this networking and practicing what I preach. And then 2023 came along and I just felt like things just took off, and I'm like, wow, where did the year go? Because I impressed myself this year. Like I really this past year, I impressed myself because I was like, wow, Martika, you really did a lot. Like you were complaining in 2022, like I really got to change like this lazy founder stuff, right? It was a little bit on the lazy side. And then I actually started doing things, created, I guess, like an image for BOOP and myself as a person, just putting myself out there more, even on the days where I woke up and was like, I really don't want to go to this event. But then just be like, no, I got to put on the BOOP shirt. I got to do it and just push through.
Almost like creating the activity, right?
Yeah.
Like I need to increase the amount of activity that happens.
Yeah, and I felt like I did that, and one of the biggest lessons that I learned from last year is like you really don't get what you don't ask for. Right. And I felt like I took more risks last year that's setting me up for this year positively. Like I got pushed out of that nest, and some of those I have to thank you for.
I push hard.
And I'm just like, I'm like, what am I doing? I don't know. But it was great because I got comfortable with being uncomfortable several times last year.
Oh man, that's the money line.
Yeah,
Jeez,
and
being comfortable, being uncomfortable.
Yes,
oh my God.
and I feel like all of that hard work and that grind has like really set me up, and just looking back on from starting BOOP and then be like, nah, I thought the end of 2022 I had momentum. No, 2023 was the start.
Wow.
Because it was just like, and that's why I put like, this was just the warm up. Like, so now 2024 we're really.
You're framing the conversation around, though we had a great 2023, and let me show you how great it was. Yeah. This is just the precursor to something much larger. Like there's a Chris Moranci, we always steal his line. Yes. There's a larger game afoot.
Yes.
Shout out to Chris Moranci.
Shout out.
Stealing all his stuff, but like you made it a conscious effort to say, I'm going to celebrate this year as a win, but that's what it is. We're just celebrating this as a win. This is not the end all be all. This is not the destination, right? This is just a milestone along the destination.
I felt like I was putting in my dues.
Okay.
I really felt like this year I was like putting in my dues. Like it was almost like, even though I was doing all the things before when I started the company, it's still, the imposter syndrome, it still felt like I was playing startup.
Okay. Yeah.
This year it was like I really was doing the startup.
So you were building as opposed to sort of ideating. It wasn't just ideation. It was actually you putting your hands in the proverbial dirt and actually, building something. Okay. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Look, I wish I could tell you that I looked back at 2023, so you talk about moments, and the way that my brain works, it works in pictures, right? Images. So I could probably go through our update emails and go through our shared drives and go through our various pitch decks that we put together last year and start to catalog moments. One moment sticks out to me probably more than any other, and that was. Allison was a part of Techstars Miami. We were in the first cohort.
And shout out, congrats to you on that.
Well, we're trying to get you in there. We were in the first cohort, and so we wrapped up December of 22. And then we got our term sheet with AFF the day before. So the day before we did our demo day, we got our first term sheet, right? And it was it was a really dope term sheet. So we're like, all right, cool, let's go down this path. And look, shout out to Birmingham, right? Because Birmingham has been amazing to us. Not just for Allison, but just for the amount of other entrepreneurs that are going through the same thing that you and I went through for a year. Like they're having those same experiences, and now I'm able to share some lessons with them, and they're able to share lessons with me. So that's furthering Allison's story. But, one thing that sticks out was the first time I went to Birmingham. And that was January 2nd, I think. Because it was literally like the first or second. I went down there it was January 2nd. So I flew out there the morning of January 2nd. I met with Maria Underwood from Birmingham Bound. Shout out to Maria, who just had a baby. Or I think she just had a baby. I know she was super pregnant last time I saw her. She was super pregnant. I was like, oh, man. But she picks me up from the airport, and she takes me around Birmingham. And I'm thinking to myself, man, because part of taking in the money from AFF was I had to move to Birmingham. So, I'll live, I'm living in Birmingham, 4 or 5 days of the week, and then I'm coming back to see my family here in Tampa, see you and all the folks in Tampa. And I was just like, man, can I do that, for a year? Is that what I really want to do? And I said, well, let me go out here in good faith and take this trip and kind of see the things, see what's really there. And literally from the moment that I got off that plane and I was in Maria's hands, I just felt like, wow, these people actually care. Yeah. Not to say that Tampa doesn't, or not to say that Tampa didn't give me that feeling, but the way that I explain it is Tampa has a lot of opportunity, but not a lot of conduits to that opportunity. Yeah. Right? You kind of have to just make your own. Yeah. Which, hey, steel sharpens steel, right? But I think Birmingham has a lot of opportunity, but they also have a lot of people invested in your success. Yeah. Right? So it's it's not Allison winning, it's us winning if Allison wins. Right? It's not BÖP winning. That's just how I've taken it. Yeah. So it's being there, and I met the mayor. Shout out to Mayor Woodfin, smart, just beautifully smart guy. Apparently only a year older than me, which makes me feel nuts.
Wow, that's crazy.
What have I done with my life?
I remember the picture. I was like, oh, okay. You're big time now.
I remember sending you that picture. I remember standing at the spot and sending you that picture. But that more so burns in my mind because I felt like I'll steal your line. I felt like I was playing CEO. Right? Yep. For the year plus that we were building what ultimately became Allison, because it was called something else. I feel like I was playing CEO. And then being in this new environment with all these potential opportunities and again, the fish sort of maze mentality, I felt like there was a parting of roadblocks where I could clearly see, it wasn't the end goal, but I could see pathways to the next milestone. Yeah. And they were crystal clear. No misinterpretation about it. That's the next milestone. And all we got to do is go straight and we'll get there. And that's kind of what happened. And look, we took some losses in 2023, right? You and I have talked about this ad nauseum about, me having to let go of people on my team. Yeah. And, kind of you and
that's
I.
Rough.
So, yes, literally rough. And, you and I talked about, kind of the burden that we have as the leaders of our respective businesses, and that we have a duty to make sure that we're putting our business in the best situation, that we put our teams in the best situation. Sometimes there is addition by subtraction. And though I really have a ton of respect for those people, I feel like they weren't ultimately the right people for where we were. Yeah. Right? There were some assumptions that I made on my part where I thought, okay, this could be the right person. I won't know until I try. And that's probably my biggest strength and my biggest weakness, is that I'm willing to try anything if I believe in it enough, or if I see data that leads me to that points me in a specific direction. My thing is, let's try it on a small level and see if it works. And if it doesn't, guess what? We can pivot quickly. Yeah. Right? And so that was kind of how I looked at 2023. And that's why that moment sticks out, because it was just so much possibility. And then, we had a ton of ups and downs, right? as all business owners do. But I think I think if you give it, I think within the next couple of weeks, I'll take a real inventory of what we did last year, right, and then kind of have a better association of what I felt was a win and what I felt was a moment for us to improve. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that would be a great callback that we could do. Yeah, it'd be like,
so now you're gonna put me on the spot, right? Like,
yeah, it's gonna be a great callback.
So did you do that
wins.
retrospective? Like, let's go back and let's go through each bullet point. And I feel like
let's look back at it.
That's right.
And we're gonna have it on the TV.
So I almost drank. Well, I mean, it's kind of over. Like I got maybe like
we're at an hour exactly.
A swallow. Well, look at that. See, we're efficient, right? No,
we are efficient. We are efficient.
I mean, other than the fact that we're telling people that we have this ungodly addiction to caffeine induced products.
I'm not even halfway through, but my face, when you were talking, it started twitching a little. I was like, oh, no. I was like, oh, don't start. Brian will be like, are you okay? So I've been slowing down.
So that answers the first question that we asked, is that, like, will we know?
I felt a twitch right here in my cheek. I was like, oh
man.
All right.
This is the TeaPod with Martika and Brian, or Brian and Martika, whatever you want to do it. I think it was like Jones and Alvarez-Bailey or something like that. I don't know. We'll figure that part out.
I think it was Brian and Martika. I have to go back and look at it.
Whatever. We'll figure that part out. So we want to make these regular. We'll do these once a week.
Yeah. I think once a week is perfect.
Okay.
So what do we want to leave them with any final thoughts?
The short answer is yes, but I found myself in a position where I'm more concerned about your health at this point, so my brain just went blank. I'm like, man, if I got to give this gal CPR, I don't know what's gonna happen. Like, I'm sitting there going through my mind, like, what's the checklist? And Annie, are you okay? Oh. Am I okay? Look at
this. Are
this.
You okay?
This is ridiculous. Maybe I had that gum too.
I want you all to take note on the keyword collectiveness here. If you haven't already, find your tribe, because you don't want to do this alone.
True.
It is a very lonely world out there when it comes to being a founder.
And tissues are expensive, and
yes.
You're going to cry a lot. So find people that have bulk tissues.
Bulk tissue. Find the BJ's or Costco subscription people.
Look. If you're out there and you got a BJ's card, hit me up. Hit me up. Let me know something. Brian at TeaPod or something like that. I don't know. We'll figure that out anyway. Look, this was super, super fun. Super excited to go on this journey with you. Let's make some stuff happen.
Hey.
Boom.